I had not finished my salutations before the curtains were again drawn aside, and another visitor entered, whose appearance caused even more excitement than my own. I did not know at first, but I afterwards recognized that it was he, Arvez, who had carried my little charge from my arms when I lay upon the slopes. I also recalled several previous visits which he had paid to the college, and then I became conscious of the object of his present mission. The coming dissolution of the body is in every case known on this side of life in advance, whether by accident or lingering disease. At this time the harvest of life can be ascertained, the condition of the soul on entering immortality be known, and its first dwelling place assigned. From henceforth the soul about to be born is conducted, during its hours of sleep, into its new surroundings, and so made familiar with its coming home. This was the mission of Arvez. There was not one in all that assemblage but knew it. Every eye was fixed upon him, every child crowded to get near him. Upon every face was written the hopeful query, "Is it I?" Was it a shade of disappointment that passed over those faces when the messenger found and designated the lad he sought? If so, can you wonder at it? They knew the sufferings, the privations, and the hardships of the fortunate one would soon be over. For themselves, no one could tell how long the struggle would last, or how fierce it yet might be. Nevertheless, they showed heroic courage in the general assent they gave to the cry of joy which broke from the lips of a companion who knew the fortunate lad well. "It's Limpy Jack, but I'm most as glad as if it were me." There was no appearance of accident or deformity to justify the sobriquet by which his friend described him, but that occasioned no astonishment in my mind, for the reason I have already explained, that the deformities of the body are not perpetuated in the soul. Immediately the decision was known, the group opened that the lad might go to Arvez, who lifted him in his arms, congratulated and kissed him, at which another cheer broke forth, making the place to ring. That kiss was the seal of death upon his brow, an evidence of which would be conveyed to the body, so that the sign could be known and read on earth that he would soon be called to heaven. The boy who announced his name followed him as he came forward, and when the cheer died away, looked up at Arvez and asked, "Is he a-comin' soon?" "Presently, as soon as we can bring him away," was the kindly response. "Jack, you won't go and forget us when you come, will you?" "In course I won't. Why won't I come here regular like I does now? In course I will." "All right, Jack, I'll trust yer, and when I wake I'll try and remember you're a-comin', and I'll look at yer till you do." "God bless you," said Arvez, as he kindly patted the faithful little head. Then he turned away to carry the lad to see his new home. I was anxious, if possible, to know their destination, so turned toward the door where Arvez was waiting for a moment. "Where do you take him?" I asked. "To the house of a sister who is not altogether unknown to you. Will you go with us?" "I shall be delighted," I replied. "But will he live with her?" "For the present. He needs instruction and guidance, and she will undertake that duty." We traveled what must have been a long distance, but the process of aerial locomotion is by no means wearisome, and the time was pleasantly occupied in listening to the multitude of questions propounded by the lad and patiently answered by Arvez. There was no necessity for me to speak, for the answers so kindly given to the boy were full of information to myself, while I was more than once amazed at the care and patience which were expended upon replies to questions that on earth would have sorely taxed the equanimity of the most forbearing. We passed by several cities of considerable size, whose many beauties were a never-failing source of admiration, not only for Jack, but for myself as well. Every object was but another evidence of the pleasures yet in store for me, when the opportunity should be afforded for leisurely visiting each scene and sipping the sweets of knowledge which abounded. There were cities I then imagined, and have since confirmed, that were the originals to which Rome, and Athens, and Carthage, Babylon, Thebes, and Nineveh aspired in the days when their beauty touched its zenith. Toil on, O pious soul, what thou on earth thy pilgrim feet may never stand within the sacred shrine of thy heart's desire. What if thy tear-dimmed eyes shall never look upon the land thy kindred call by the sweetest name of home. Thy every aspiration awaits thy coming in far more beauteous guise, where the eternal noon abides for evermore. The Jew whose wandering feet have never stood upon the Mount of Olives, the Mohammedan whose eye was never fired at the sight of the mosques of Mecca, the Catholic who had vainly hoped and longed to gaze upon the Vatican, the Christian who falsely dreamed that he would one day stand within the walls of Bethlehem or climb the hill of Calvary, and every earnest soul who had some holy sanctuary where with unshod feet his spirit would fall in worshipful adoration. Take courage, when love has wrought its work of purification on your heart, when your hands have grown tender under the touch of kindness, when in your eyes are lighted the beacon fires of affection, and your souls are clothed in the robes of charity and forgiveness, when the Christ of God is born again in you, and you through tribulation have been baptized into him, you will find the better goal than that for which you sigh, and the realization shall be far beyond your anticipation in that home where the soul, in every respect, shall be satisfied when it awakes in his likeness.